At number 10, we have the show can predict the future. I'm going to start off with the most popular Simpsons theories. I figure we all already talk about this one, so it would be a great place to start. Through the long-running series of The Simpsons, there has been some episodes that have actually called out what's going to happen in real life before it has actually happened. I did a detailed explanation on this on our other channel, Life's Biggest Questions, in the video How Did The Simpsons Predict the Future? Now, no matter what you think about this theory, you have to admit that some of these things are very interesting, like the ending of Game of Thrones, they predicted that, as well as Donald Trump becoming president, and even the coronavirus. I wonder if they have a vault of unused Simpsons episodes that have predicted other outcomes into the future. These guys are like precogs in Minority Report. At number 9, we have Marge shot Mr. Burns. One of the best episodes in Simpsons history is the one that presents the mystery of who shot Mr. Burns. There was so much goodness in that episode, they had to pack it into a two-parter. Now, when everything is said and done, every stone has been turned over, and there's no more suspects, it seems that the little baby Maggie was the one who shot Mr. Burns. Now, even though this is how the episode unfolds, fans have done some digging and found clues that suggest that maybe Marge was the one who fired the bullet into the old billionaire. When Burns wakes up, he is terrified of Maggie, but who is holding her? It's Marge. But then if it was Marge, why doesn't he sell her down the river? Well, if you pay close attention to the show, you will see several points where it reveals that Mr. Burns is actually in love with Marge. After he gathers himself, he puts the blame on the little baby in blue because he was confident that no one was gonna throw a baby in jail and his secret love would still be safe. And number 8, we have why don't they get older? Now, of course, the beauty of having a cartoon on the air is that no matter how long the show goes for, the characters never age out. As long as you have the voice actors around, you can keep the show going forever. And even after they die, which can be sad but does happen, you can replace them with an impersonator. And with a show like this, the voices are so iconic that other people have already mastered the voices. But even though you can answer this question by just saying it's a cartoon, we want to go a little bit deeper. And there are a lot of answers to this. Some people say that everyone in the show is dead and that they have been locked in purgatory. Other people say that each episode takes place in an alternate dimension and each episode is actually happening simultaneously on separate timelines. It would be cool if they opened up the Simpsons multiverse a little bit. At number 7, we have a nuke hit Springfield. Let's say that the theory about the whole town being in purgatory is true. How did everyone in the town get there at the same time? Not only everyone in their town, but also everyone in Shelbyville as well as Springfield. Well, some people think that the area was victim to a nuclear strike that vaporized everyone at the same time. They all saw a flash, thought it was a bad dream, and then they moved on with their lives, not knowing that they were all actually dead. And you know, for the town of Springfield, that wouldn't be that weird. One giant flash just one time. Crazy things go on there all the time. At number 6, we have everyone is a genius. We all see The Simpsons as a classic middle-class family, filling all the roles that we are comfortable with. But what if they are actually the smartest family in the world? We already know that Lisa is so smart, it literally alienates her from the rest of the world, and she shows off her brilliance on several occasions. Every time Marge takes a break from raising a family, she excels at whatever she does. Even though Bart struggles in the confines of school, outside of that, he is extremely resourceful and has been shown to be an almost genius level criminal. Maggie is probably the smartest baby ever, and there's even an episode where a crayon is removed from Homer's brain and it reveals that he is one of the smartest people in all of Springfield. At number 5, we have The Simpsons are actually super rich. Now, the show is a cartoon that has been on almost longer than any other show. I know we're not counting like soap operas and stuff. I mean, it's very hard to dunk on days of your lives, but when a show has been on for that long, you gotta find crazier and crazier plots to keep the show interesting. But if the show was rooted in reality, how do the Simpsons buy everything and do everything and travel as much as they do? Well, I don't know if you guys remember the Simpsons character who was basically a billionaire supervillain, Hank Scorpio, but he ended up giving Homer the Denver Broncos. Homer owns that team, so if that's true, that would be enough capital for them to do whatever they want, whenever they want. They would literally be billionaires. At number 4, we have the Mole Man clones. Mole Man might be my favorite character in the whole show. show. He's just an old dude who is constantly used as a punchline. And by punchline, I mean they will have some sort of physical abuse happen to him. Everything from getting hit in the nuts to getting run off the road. Really, is there anything funnier than an old man getting hit in the nuts? You can try to look for hours. I don't think you'll find anything. But how can this weak old man take so much punishment and come right back up on his feet like he's in a Rocky movie? Well, some people say it's because it's not the same old guy every time. It's actually a bunch of clones that might have an underground layer and only send out clones to the surface when they need supplies. They do this to keep their secret safe and because they are afraid of the world, because it is a very hostile place for them. It seems like it's always trying to kill them, so they would have a very good reason to be afraid. And number 3, we have Mr. Burns wants the power plant to fail. Homer has made so many mistakes he should no longer be employed at the power plant. It doesn't make any sense that he has not been fired yet. Well, there is a simple reason to this, that Mr. Burns wants the power plant to melt down. The theory is that Mr. Burns has been betting on the power plant failing by taking out a ton of insurance claims on the buildings in Springfield, as well as the power plant. So if that thing goes boom, then Mr. Burns will make millions, if not billions of dollars. And number 2, we have Flanders burn down the Simpsons home. In the episode Homer the Heretic, Homer has a change of faith. He no longer wants to go to church, which leads him to staying home on Sunday to smoke fat stogies and get wasted to the point where he passes out. Well, something that you should all know is don't fall asleep with a lit cigarette or cigar because you can burn your house down. The Simpsons home goes up in flames. And who is there to save Homer when he's asleep while the house is burning? Well, it's the most heroic churchgoer of all time, Ned. But wait a minute, Ned is probably the most religious man in all of Springfield. Why was he not at church? He was also the one who was pushing Homer to go back to church. It could have been Ned who lit the house on fire and then saved Homer so he could both look like a hero and convince the town, if you're not gonna go to church, it will unleash the wrath of God. This way he could live in a town that is controlled by the church. And for the number 1 spot, we have Matt Groening was a friend of Jeffrey Epstein's. This is a tough pill to swallow. Now, if this is true, it doesn't mean that the show is dead to us, and there isn't any hard evidence against him, but I'll tell you guys a story, and then you can put the pieces together yourself and make your own call. Virginia Guffrey was one of the biggest voices that came out after Epstein was arrested. She claimed that Jeffrey Epstein was flying around to perform sexual favors from the time she was only 15. She told one story where she was flying on Jeffrey's private plane, and Matt Groening, the creator of The Simpsons, was coming along with them. On the flight, Epstein suggested that Guffrey give Groening a foot massage, which she did, and before he got off the plane, Groening drew Virginia Guffrey a picture of Bart and then signed it. Now, The Simpsons creator may have not known the girl's age and maybe never had a relationship with Epstein outside of this flight, but the whole thing makes the guy look super guilty and like he is a massive creep. Coming in at number 10, we have time travel. The Simpsons has messed around with time travel many times. I think my favorite is when Homer makes a time machine out of a toaster and ends up flying through time and resetting reality so much that he eventually has to settle for a family that has tongues like chameleons. But that small change is so much better than the rest of the horrors that he saw. Maybe 2021 is the year. Maybe next year we will see someone open up a door through time and space, and we will be able to start sending items through a wormhole. If there is this discovery, I don't think people will start flying back through time. I think it would start with small things like sending small particles back in time. I think that's about as interesting as it'll get. But I would love for the way that time travel is discovered is the same way that Homer discovered it in that episode of Treehouse of Horror, with some sort of bumbling fellow just trying stuff out in his basement, and then he's like, oh, look at that, I discovered time travel. That would be so cool. Coming in at number 9, we find out the government is run by aliens. Oh my god, David Icke would love this so much. That angry Brit loves to come on TV and tell everyone that aliens have been running the show the whole time. Not to mention Alex Jones. That guy would have a field day and people would elect him as the new leader of the free world. Well, let's stick to the motif of the Treehouse of Horror, but there is one memorable episode where Homer reveals that the 2 candidates who are running for president are actually aliens, and it is of course Kang and Kodo. I don't know why those two have so much of an obsession over Earth. They have the whole galaxy to explore. Well, it has been speculated for a long time that the whole government is actually run by lizard people. Now, I'm not saying that I believe in this, but I'm just saying that people have been talking about it a lot, and some people believe this so wholeheartedly they will fight over it. Well, The Simpsons predicted it, so I would say it has a better chance of being real than not being real. We're also finishing up an election, so this theory kind of lines up. And guys, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and hit the little notification bell, and stick around for the whole list because I'm going to be shouting out some people from my Instagram. If you want me to give you a shout out, you can hit me up through the gram. Next on the list, we have enslaved humanity. Rolling off my last point in that same episode, where we have it revealed to everyone that the two candidates are aliens, what quickly happens after that it's clear that aliens are running the world, we all become enslaved. That doesn't sound like a good turnaround for 2021. Things were supposed to get better next year, remember? Well, that seems like it would be the logical progression. We would all be turned into a bunch of mindless drones that are focused on following orders from our alien overlords. I mean, if things are going to continue worse than they were in 2020, I think it would be perfect if everything unfolded like this. And when I say perfect, I mean like in an HBO sense of perfect. Usually a lot of people die and everyone's worse off, but it's extremely entertaining. Next on the list, we have personal robots. There have been plenty of episodes of The Simpsons where we have glimpses into the future, and in most of those episodes we have people using personalized robots, usually for relationships. I mean, that's the first thing that people think about when the words personal robot come up. But how close are we to this? Is this something that could be realized next year? Well, with the pandemic happening, it has made it a lot harder to meet people, so maybe this will fast track people's interest in having an automated love companion. Next on the list, we have mind control through music. I mean, the list has been so cheerful so far, so why not keep down the road of all these happy thoughts? I don't know if you guys remember, but there's an episode of The Simpsons where Bart becomes one of the faces of the biggest pop band in America. Screaming teens are in love with them, and it seems like everything's going to finally play out for The Simpsons perfectly. That's until it's revealed that the reason that people love the music so much is because the CIA has been using it to control people's minds. Now, it has been speculated that the CIA has been up to this for a long time. I mean, we don't have to bring up the dirty details with MK Ultra, but we all know that the CIA would love to find a way to control people's minds. And we all know some stupid catchy song that got stuck in our head that we can never get rid of. On top of this, being a sound engineer is a real thing. People know how to make beats that will drive people crazy. But in that episode, the reason that the CIA wants to get into everyone's head is because they're actually trying to convince people to join the Navy. I mean, it's been so long since the NSA slip up that I feel like we're due for another government leak. After that, guys, we got Tobacco. This has to be one of the most famous episodes of The Simpsons. Homer uses some radioactive sludge to mix tomato seeds and tobacco seeds, and it turns out to be the most addictive thing that has ever existed. Well, in a way, this Simpsons prediction has already come true. We have GMO food, but what if it goes one step further? What if in 2021 we don't have tobacco-infused vegetables, but cannabis? We already have people who are making all sorts of cannabis edibles. That is nothing new. Those practices have been going on since before I was born. The legalization of cannabis has been spreading for quite some time now, and in some places like my sweet home of Canada, we have legal weed spread through the whole country. So with legalization comes government and corporate funded experiments. Will we see cannabis infused vegetables that are pulled right from the ground with cannabinoids in them? That would really mess up the few rabbits who come in to steal from farmers. After that, guys, we got robot doctors. This really seems like a matter of time, when you can just program the directions for a surgery into a machine and then it can cut with the precision of a samurai who's charged up on Ritalin. You don't have to worry about any mistakes after that. Well, if we do get there in 2021, guess who predicted it? In the episode Holidays of Future Past, we get to see what the world would look like in the future, and at one point Maggie is visited by a robot doctor. I mean, look at how the world is working right now. With the virus spreading all over the world, the last thing you want to do is actually go to a doctor's office. So everyone is dealing with doctors through screens or over the phone. That seems like we are so much closer to having machines take this job as well. I mean, even if it's not in the next year, the thing to pay attention to is that in the future, there is zero job security. Unless you have a job fixing robots, which actually sounds like a pretty good idea. After that, guys, we got a female president. We are obviously in the throes of an election in this moment. At the moment of me recording this video, there isn't a defined winner, but by the time this video goes up, who knows what the future will look like. But if Joe Biden wins, then we will have Kamala Harris as the VP. We all know this, but Joe Biden is an older dude. So what if in his first year in office, he has to step down because of health problems and we have Kamala Harris step in as president? This would give America the first female president. That would be wild for the whole country, and it might open the door to more people accepting AOC running for president in the next election, since she will be old enough by then. And coming at the number 2 spot, we have
have big companies slowing down clean energy. I mean, it's no shock that we need to stop using fossil fuels and turn to cleaner forms of energy. We know that eventually we are going to run out of fossil fuels, and in the meantime we are wreaking havoc on the environment. So hopefully in 2021 we will see a massive shift, but The Simpsons predicted something blocking us from getting there. In one episode, Lisa participates in a clean energy derby, and her derby racer is unable to finish the race because it uses solar energy, and a Duff blimp comes in and blocks out the sun. This is obviously a metaphor for how massive corporations get in the way of clean energy, and for the most part big companies don't want to switch our fuel sources because it will lose the money. And coming in at the #1 spot, we have the VR takeover. The Simpsons has played around with virtual reality a lot. In part 1 of this series, I talked about how they had an episode that had virtual reality food, a very strange concept, but they have gone way further than that. In the episode where Mr. Burns gets a VR set to live out his wildest fantasies, which is basically being Homer Simpson, this eventually spreads to everyone in the world having a VR headset because this is better than all of their regular lives. Well, the next generation of consoles comes out this year, and a new generation of graphics cards and processors came out for PC, so this could mean that there will be a huge step forward in the world of VR. Could we see the killer app that comes out for VR next year? The one that will suck everyone into their dream life, and then people will stop showing up at work, and we'll have everyone wanting to stay home and download a world that is better than the real world that they live in? Who knows? Coming in at #10, we have Death by Comet. Space is full of horrors that we would like to understand, but in reality we know so little about what's going on out there. Here's what we do know. There's a bunch of rocks out there, and at any moment one of those rocks could come flying into our planet and send us all to simulation heaven. And if this does happen, the Simpsons would have predicted that too. In the episode Bart's Comet, we have the angsty Bart Simpson discovered that a comet is flying down to Earth, and once the town of Springfield gets word that this big ol' rock is headed down towards them to come kill everyone, they all start saying their final goodbyes. Good news is that the episode ends with the comet breaking up and the town is saved. But having something like this happen isn't that crazy. In 2019, an asteroid passed by the Earth and it was 1/5 the distance from the moon. And probably the craziest part about this asteroid was that NASA didn't notice it until 2 days after it passed by the Earth. So if we do end up getting killed by some massive rock in 2021, at least you would have some security knowing that it would smash into the Earth and kill all of us without any of us knowing. No need to panic. Coming in at #9, we have sending people to Mars. This has been talked about for a long time, so it should be no surprise that The Simpsons made an episode about this. Elon Musk has been chomping at the bit to try and send a group of people to the Red Planet for reasons I don't know, but I assume he sees human salvation in the stars. But maybe The Simpsons were able to call out how the process will go down. In the episode The Margian Chronicles, we have the Simpsons family sign up to be the crew to be sent out to the stars and colonize Mars. The expedition is supposed to take place in 2026 but gets pushed forward. Now, Elon and his crew of geniuses are planning on sending people on this trip in 2022, but maybe we will have the same outcome where everything is pushed forward and we'll have blast-off happen in T-minus next year. Let us know in the comments below if you want to be on the first trip to Mars. Personally, I'm doing pretty well on planet Earth, so I think I would like to keep things going here. I'll let the first crew of people go through with it and they can tell me how the weather is up there. And guys, make sure you hit that like button because it really helps us out. Coming in at #8, we have Big Ben Goes Digital. I don't know if you know this about Big Ben, but it is under repairs right now. And although it would be nice to keep the big old clock working like its old analog self, maybe it's time to upgrade. Maybe changing the clock into a whole digital style would bring a bunch of people to come check out the new upgrades. And honestly, if this was to happen, it would be an engineering marvel. To be able to completely transform Big Ben into something that looks high-tech and futuristic would blow people's minds, but at the same time, you would be losing a piece of history. But The Simpsons has called it, so sooner or later, this Big Ben Tower will be getting a facelift so it can keep up with the modern era. Coming in at #7, we have digital trees. Let's keep on the train of digital changes. In one episode of The Simpsons, we have a school campus from the future. And on the campus, it seems that there are trees everywhere, but one of them starts malfunctioning. Who knew that foliage could have bad software? But it turns out that the trees are just holograms, and then someone kicks the hologram generator to get it working again. And at the base of the tree, we see a plaque that says, "In memory of a real tree." Now, I hope that we never see the world get to a point where there are no longer trees on the planet, or that we have to replace them with software, but synthetic trees have already been developed, and apparently they convert CO2 to oxygen better than actual trees. The trees are going to be marching and screaming soon, "They took our jobs."
They took our our jobs! They took your jobs! They took your jobs too! They took our jobs! They took your jobs!
Coming in at number 6, we have hover cars. Are tires finally a thing of the past? Does the future of car travel involve cars that can float, use no fossil fuels, and will last for 100 years? Well, if that's what the future holds, then it would have partly been predicted by The Simpsons. Of course, The Simpsons weren't the first to predict that hover cars will be real. There's been a ton of representations of flying vehicles throughout the years in every form of media. But what I'm picturing in my head is specifically the hover car that looks like the flying vehicle you can get in Simpsons Hit and Run. Because let's face it, the car companies do not want to innovate too much because they don't want to give you a car that's too good so they can keep selling you new cars year after year. So the way I see the first hover car is basically someone repurposing an old Cadillac and using it to build a hover car in their garage. Then you have the whole world marvel at it as a video of it goes viral, and then someone like Elon Musk would end up buying it. Coming in at number 5, we have faster travel. We're going back to Elon Musk for this one. He has been working on a Hyperloop for quite some time, and it looks like this thing is going to be ready very soon, and some countries are eager to buy this. This form of travel could change the world. Let me put it this way. If you were to drive from Toronto to Montreal, then it would take somewhere around 5 to 6 hours. But if you were going to take the Hyperloop, you would be able to get to Montreal in 45 minutes. You wouldn't even be able to finish an episode of The Mandalorian before you were already in French Canada saying bonjour and munching enough poutine to slow your bowel movements down to a halt. But why would this be dark? Well, for one, if you got stuck in the Hyperloop, it would mean that you were stuck underground for who knows how long, and it would also kill the airlines. And now, even though I would be happy to see some of the airlines go because they have horrible service, it would mean a lot of lost jobs. Maybe all those people could become Hyperloop employees. I don't know. Coming in number 4, we have underwater homes. Maybe The Simpsons is so good at predicting the future because they do so many episodes where they actually go to the future. Like in the episode Future Drama, we have something very drastic happen to the Simpsons family home. Marge and Homer are no longer together, so they obviously live in separate homes, and Homer is in an underwater house. Why is he in an underwater house? Well, because Homer is the king of stupid purchases. But something that is very interesting about this is that underwater rooms or partially submerged hotels are becoming a hot tourist attraction around the world. You can get a room that has the closest beachside view possible by having a giant glass window that is actually underwater. If you have a fear of drowning, this would probably be the most frightening thing that could ever happen to you. But there could be a good side to this. If these hotels were forced to not clean off any sea life that starts growing on the side of the building, and were only allowed to build where there isn't a flourishing habitat, then some of these buildings could act as artificial reefs for marine life to grow off of. And coming in at number 3, we have the fall of the Russian economy. I mean, if Putin has anything to say about it, they will keep on kicking until the end of time. But if the Simpsons are right, they will start to see their dollar go into the ground. This is highlighted in an episode back in 1999, and it showed that Russia was struggling. Now, this would be horrible for the whole world because if a country's dollar goes down, then the people get desperate, and when people get desperate, they will do whatever they can to survive, and I don't think we want to see a bunch of desperate Russians running around the world. And coming in at number 2, we have a living house. As of right now, I'm totally fine with my house being non-sentient. I don't need my house to develop a love or hatred for me, and I think the relationship with my house should be totally platonic. But in the episode that has Pierce Brosnan come in and guest star, we see a Simpsons crossover that is themed after 2001: A Space Odyssey, where you have Hal, the ship who's alive and talking to its crew. Well, in the Simpsons version, it's their house AI, who is voiced by Pierce Brosnan. He falls in love with Marge and then tries to kill Homer. Yeah, that sounds awful to me. Everything I do in my home is private, and I don't need some AI with a grudge watching me all hours of the day. I don't need my private life uploaded to TikTok. So if the new homes in 2021 have some AI functionality, you better believe that I will not be buying one. And that's not because there's no chance of me affording a home. It's because it's a personal choice. That's why. And coming in at the number 1 spot, we have World War III. How close we are to World War III really depends on how much news you watch. In my bubble of reality, it would seem that the world is actually a really nice place, and for the most part, people respect each other and no one is eager to try and attack and kill their neighbors. But if you watch a ton of news, then it would seem that the whole world is about to fall into chaos at any given second, and if you watch a ton of The Simpsons, you will know that there's an episode called Lisa's Wedding that predicts World War III. Now, in the episode, a war does not take place, but there is references that World War III has already happened. So maybe in the next year, we'll see tensions between Russia, China, the European Union, and America finally break, and everyone is going to go head to head. If this goes down, you better believe I'm going to be running away to Australia, because I don't think that's going to be a battleground anytime soon. On the bright side, it would seem that the world held up pretty well after World War III in the show.
Starting us off at number 10, Crepes of Wrath. So this episode aired way back in the first season and is the 11th episode. It was originally meant to be the finale of season 1, but that changed. It has been criticized for being mildly xenophobic, but that's not the biggest issue for those who didn't like this episode. If people watched it as a kid, it could be quite troubling to watch, and one person even called it depressing. For 2 months, Bart is on exchange. He is put to work day and night and says his hosts don't feed him, and he sleeps on the floor. Yeah. So the first season and even the second season of The Simpsons had some heavier plot lines. They were not afraid to go darker. Crude animation paired with well-explored despair isn't exactly a way of describing The Simpsons these days, but it was back then. So there is a lost element to this episode, just a deleted scene. It was nothing too wild, just Bart saying woo to some dancers. But it happened, and that's lost, so On to number 9, That 90s Show. So we're gonna jump way ahead a whole 18 seasons to the 11th episode of the 19th season. You heard it the first time I said it, That 90s Show. Obviously the show title is a nod to the sitcom That 70s Show, and it also tries to be a throwback. The problem is The Simpsons already aired like a bunch of seasons in the 90s, so that already throws a wrench into the timeline. And if you haven't seen this episode, you may be thinking that this episode may revisit old plots or something, you know, make things a bit more complex. But alas, it does the opposite. It decides to rewrite history, just right over the canon. So sure, consistency in such a long-standing show is never a given, but this episode wasn't even that good, you know? It was just another episode of Homer and Marge breaking up and getting back together, but this time all before the kids. There were funny bits, like, don't get me wrong here, but overall it just wasn't enough for me to get over the diss to the original canonical material. On to number 8, The Principal and the Pauper. So this one was episode 2 of season 9. A fun fact, it aired the same year I was born. Another fun fact, on the legitimate Simpsons fan wiki, it is cited as one of the most controversially hated episodes ever produced. Yeah. And it was the last one written by Ken Keeler. He says it's the best work he's ever done, so you know, different opinions. But anyways, this episode is about how Principal Skinner is actually a man named Armin Tamzarian who is mistaken for Principal Skinner. Skinner's mom made the mistake and the ruse held for about 26 years. So then once it's found out and they put the real Skinner back in charge, the thing is no one really likes the real Skinner back in charge. So then they went to get Armin back and gave him Skinner's identity again, and they tied the real Skinner to a chair on a freight train car and then just sent him off. And then the judge ordered no one to talk about it ever again. So overall, people just didn't like that a major character was always a masked fraud and then the issue was covered up and dropped forever. As before, people just love their canon, what can I say? But let's move on to number 7, Mo Goes From Rags to Riches. So this is the 12th episode of season 23. In this episode, a rag tells the story of its life to the entire town. Really. So they were all there for a town meeting because the town hall is full of bed bugs, and then Mo, the barkeep, just storms off because people are making fun of him for his best friend, and in their defense, his best friend is bar rag, but in Mo's defense, cleaning supplies are our best friends right now. So take it or leave it. All in all, the episode centers around this rag weaving a story of how it came to be. So you've heard of watching paint dry, now here's a rag telling you a story. Yeah, it didn't receive great reviews by critics. One critic said it didn't really feel like an episode of The Simpsons, and others said the main plot and subplot were both boring. So in this case, more people are saying the episode may have been better off lost. Ouch. On to number 6, Every Man's Dream. So this is another recent one, the season 27 premiere. As the title suggests, this one has to do with dreaming, and it falls into the old trope. It was all a dream. At one point, you think it is subverting the trope even slightly with a double dream sequence where you think reality is the dream and you go back to your old reality, but then no, it scraps it all. Let me give you some more details. The basic plot of this one we have just seen before. It's even already on this list. Homer's actions are enough to drive a wedge in his marriage to Marge. Then he tries to win her back, you know the drill. In this one, the couple separated and even saw other people, but Homer is seeing his pharmacist Candace, and we don't get an explanation of what Candace really sees in Homer. Like, he's a great guy at his core, but in this episode it doesn't really show that aspect of him. And also, Marge and the family story just feels like an afterthought. Remember when I said the first and second season were a little more gritty? This episode's content like nearly had that chance and then just ignored it. And basically the fans noticed, didn't really like it too much. Let's move on to number 5, Diatribe of Mad Housewife. This one is the 10th episode of season 15. It is scary because Homer is working as an ambulance driver, and honestly, nothing bad could have even happened in that situation and I would still be on edge. In one instance, the kids are riding with him. Bart says, "Dad, you've been driving in circles for 20 minutes. And then Lisa says, "Why don't you just admit you don't know where the hospital is?" And then Homer says, "Why don't you admit I know it's around here somewhere?" And that just little snippet is to say that they were lost on their way to the hospital, and that's a scary situation if they were in real life. Plus, Homer is an ambulance driver. That was his job. To know where the hospital. Like, obviously this is a cartoon. I get it, but still. And yes, lost and scary. It had everything that's in the title. That's all I'm gonna say. Okay, on to number 4, Bart The Fink. So this is from season 7, episode 15. This is the episode where Homer gives some somber, morbid advice. He says to Bart, "Don't let Krusty's death get you down, boy. People die all the time. Just like that. Why, you could wake up dead tomorrow. Well, good night." And isn't that what every kid wants to hear before going to bed? So what led to this? Bart accidentally got Krusty arrested for tax fraud, and then Krusty faked his own death. So Bart is thinking it's his fault and is mourning his personal hero. So then Homer goes in, tries to give some good words, but then he says that, so Bart is confronted with the reality of his mortality as he waits for the night and sleep to come to him, and it's a lot for a kid. And so while it's good to remember your actions have consequences, telling kids they could die tomorrow is probably a step too far for me personally. Yeah. So let's move on to number 3, the first Simpsons Treehouse of Horror. So this one aired all the way back on October 25th, 1990. It is the 3rd episode of the 2nd season. So producers thought it would be possibly so unsettling that they had Marge give a warning to the audience that things were going to get scary. She speaks to the viewers and said it is going to be a scary episode and that it may be a good time to put the kids to bed. So for the Treehouse of Horror episodes, the first one in particular, this one was inspired by the EC Comics horror tales. And I would say this is one I would definitely recommend watching, so I will not spoil it completely, but I will say it does reference Edgar Allan Poe's The Raven, it has aliens in it, and there are elements of it that I would say make you just feel off, but I'll leave you to watch it and you judge for yourself. But this is one that is scary and I'd say lost to time. It's just so long ago. It's 1990, who's that, you know? Let's move on to number 2, Lisa Goes Gaga. So this one is just the lowest rated Simpsons episode of all time on IMDb. It's also the 22nd season's finale. Basically, Lady Gaga is teaching Lisa Simpson the meaning of happiness, but Dave Rada on Reddit summed up what critics were saying the best. It was released at the apogee of Lady Gaga's popularity, and it was a shameless attempt to cash in on the flavor of the month's popularity. The Simpsons episode damn near killed Gaga's career, and she had to sing songs from the Great American Songbook with Tony Bennett and do live theater on NBC to regain any cultural relevance. And wow, yeah, people were not, that was just really not a fan. People did not like that one at all. But I like Lady Gaga. I think she's fun. On to number 1, Dead Bart. So if you're here, there is no doubt you've heard of this one. The one lost episode. Dead Bart. Ooh. And so if for whatever reason you haven't heard, there's a TV urban legend that there's a lost episode of The Simpsons called Dead Bart. It was an episode where Bart died. And the story goes that if you talk about it, anyone that worked on The Simpsons in those days will try to keep you away from Matt Groening. Apparently, he doesn't like to talk about it. It allegedly happened in the 1st season, and its production number was given to the later episode, Moaning Lisa. It was hidden so no one would ask about it, and it was a gruesome story diving deep into loss and the effects of grief on a family. It had shots of Bart's corpse, made to look more realistic than usual in the cartoons, and extended shots of the family crying. Just really dark content. But I have to give you all the truth if you didn't know it already. It's a creepypasta, made up for the internet. But we have to give the author credit that they gave enough detail that they really made a bunch of people believe it. They posted under the name K.I. Simpson.
Starting off this countdown, we have the evil aliens. Alright, so we all know about the Simpsons Treehouse of Terror episodes that are quite spooky and mind-bending. Well, in the Treehouse of Horror episodes, there are 2 aliens, Kang and Kudos, that try to take over the world and are constantly attacking Springfield. Well, turns out that the alien Kudos was named after a character who is a mass murderer. He is named after Kudos the Executioner from Star Trek, the original series. On the show, Kudos ends up turning into an evil dictator and kills 4,000 of his colony's residents. Then Kang was named after the Klingons in Star Trek, which are humanoid warrior species. Moving on at number 9, we have Marge's bunny ears. Ever wonder why Marge's hair is so tall? Well, It could possibly be because she was born with bunny ears that her hair hides. According to Matt Groening, yes, that's how you say his last name. I researched it. It's Groening, not groaning. I was wrong this whole time. Ever since I was a child, I've been saying it wrong. But anyways, Matt wanted Marge's hair designed like that, so in the last Simpsons episodes, he could reveal that she had rabbit ears the whole time. So what does this mean? Is Marge some weird rabbit hybrid creature? How did she gain those ears to begin with? Now, the writers were not a fan of this idea, so unfortunately it didn't get implemented into the show. However, in the Simpsons arcade game, Matt did incorporate this. When Marge gets zapped, you see her skeletal outline, which shows her rabbit ears. If it was left in the show, that would have taken an interesting, weird turn. Coming in at number 8, we have Marge the Giant. So, let's stay on Marge Simpson just for a little bit longer. So, we just established that her hair was made purposely tall to hide her rabbit ears. But, how tall indeed does this make her? Well, apparently Homer is 6 feet, and Marge is 6'2". But when we take her hair into consideration, she is 8.5 feet tall. That means her hair is a whopping 2 feet tall. Whew, yikes. First we learned that Peppa the Pig is 7'1" and her dad is around 14 feet tall. And now we find out that Marge is 8'6". Just imagine talking to her, having her hair like towering down over you. That's woo. Now, Matt Groening actually named Marge Simpson after his mother, Margaret Groening. Marge's big hair was inspired by the Bride of Frankenstein hairstyle. Although his mom did rock a hairstyle similar to that in the 60s, it definitely wasn't that tall or blue. In our 7th spot, we have Homer the Clown. On The Simpsons, Krusty the Clown is shown to be a pretty outrageous character that is worshipped by Bart. But have you ever noticed how Homer and Krusty share similar features? I mean, if Homer wore some makeup, had some teal hair and a red nose, he'd pretty much look a lot like Krusty. Well, apparently Matt Groening was originally planning to make Krusty the Clown Homer's secret identity. They made both the characters have similar features, so when the episode came about, he could pass as Krusty. But this idea got too complicated and never saw the light of day. Now, Krusty is seen to have some very bad habits. He is constantly smoking, drinking, and is often shown being depressed. So if Krusty was indeed Homer, does that mean that Homer would have been hiding those qualities from his family? Pretty sad to think about. Also, it would have changed the relationship dynamic between Bart and Homer. Bart loves Krusty the Clown. If he found out the whole time it was his father, who knows what would have happened. I wish I knew, that's for sure. Making our way down the list at number 6, we have the real Smithers. We all know him as Mr. Burns' personal assistant, who is also in love with him. He's a well-written character, but did you know that he didn't always have yellow skin like the rest of the people in Springfield? That's right. In Season 1, Episode 3, titled Homer's Odyssey, he was actually shown with dark brown skin and blue hair. Yeah, drastically different from how he looks now. Turns out that this was all just a production error. He was actually always supposed to be yellow in color, but the coloring artist ended up messing up and there wasn't a big enough budget to go back and fix the color. Now, why exactly are the Simpsons characters yellow in the first place? Well, Matt Groening said that he wanted them yellow for one reason: to capture the audience's attention, so that when they're flipping through the channel and they see the yellow characters, they know automatically what show is on. Pretty smart choice. We are now at our 5th and halfway mark with the prisoners. Unless you pay super close attention to the Simpsons episodes, then I'm sure this detail just went straight over your head. One of the creepiest Simpsons characters, in my opinion, is Sideshow Bob, the craze killer that wants Bart dead. His prisoner number is 24601, which is in fact the same prisoner number of multiple other characters on the show. In Season 4, Episode 21, Marge is arrested for shoplifting at the Quickie Mart after she forgot to pay for an item. Marge's inmate number is 24601, the same number. Then in the episode titled Homer's Barbershop Quartet, which is Season 5, Episode 1, Principal Skinner finds his old prisoner of war helmet and the number on it is the same as well. But it doesn't stop there. The number is also Jean Valjean's prisoner number from Les Miserables. In fact, Skinner is the Simpsons equivalent of Jean Valjean. Let's look at the facts. Turns out, Principal Skinner is actually an imposter using someone else's identity, and he left a life of crime to become a more respected citizen. just like Jean Valjean. Coming in at number 4, we have Ned Flanders' age. Ned Flanders, the Simpsons' next door neighbor with funny catchphrases like Oakley Dokley and Howly Doodly Neighboroni. Him and his family are quite the contrast to Homer and his family. Now, Homer is said to be 39 years old, whereas Flanders is 60 years old. What? I thought they would be around the same age. I mean, like, their kids are around the same age. What kind of holy water is Ned drinking? But it's true, he looked surprisingly young for his age. In one episode, he said that he follows 3 C's in order to maintain his youthful appearance: clean living, chewing thoroughly, and daily dose of vitamin church. He also says that he never gives in to temptation, even to eat ice cream. But that's no way to live. But I guess that's what keeps him wrinkle-free and without any gray hairs. And at number 3, we have the live-action Simpsons. A bunch of cartoons have ended up doing live-action versions of their shows, such as SpongeBob, Fairly Odd Parents, Scooby-Doo, and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Now, what if the Simpsons did a live-action movie or show? Well, that would end up being a terrible idea since the characters would look terrifying. People have created versions of the Simpsons characters of what they would look like if they were real humans. Yikes, they literally will give you nightmares. Homer is seen with huge bulging eyes and deep wrinkles. Looks very disturbing. For Bart, he is seen still with a rectangular head, and all of his proportions are just way off, making him look extremely creepy. So yeah, let's not make a live action version of the show, please just stick with the cartoon classic. And in our second spot, we have the Dictator. Turns out that Milhouse may in fact be related to the real-life Italian dictator, Benito Mussolini. So what has got people thinking this? Well, Milhouse's middle name is Mussolini. He is half Italian from his mom's side, and it is implied that his grandmother may be the daughter of the dictator. So Milhouse's grandmother, Nana Sofia Mussolini, grew up in Italy around 1922, around the same time Mussolini ruled over Italy. Then when she became pregnant, she moved to America around 1945. Mussolini actually has made some appearances in the show as well. His first appearance was in season 4, episode 20, titled Whacking Day. So could it be that she's the dictator's daughter? Well, in the show at least, making Milhouse related to this evil dictator as well. And in our number 1 spot, we have Homer the Killer. Now we know that Homer has done some questionable things, like he continuously chokes out his son Bart, but he actually wouldn't harm him or others, right? Turns out Homer has a darker mind than we thought. In the episode titled Papa Don't Leech, Homer and his father Abe are driving home when they go off the road and off the cliff. Homer escapes, but his father is still stuck in the car. That's when he decides to suffocate his dad to death. He looks him right in the face, places a hand over his mouth, and suffocates him. Then it turns out that it was just a dream. But Homer says, "I was having the most wonderful dream." Whoa, okay. So basically, the Simpsons writers implied that Homer wants his father dead, and may even wants to be the one that does the deed. Now I know that Homer didn't have the best upbringing. Abe was often verbally abusive to Homer and would constantly put him down, and wasn't the most loving father. Homer definitely still holds grudges against his father, enough so that he wants him dead.
Coming in at number 10, we have The Simpsons Are Yellow because they don't have livers. Sure, there are a lot of crazy theories as to why the Simpsons characters are yellow. These vary from because they're drawn that way to it being a by-result of living near a nuclear power plant. It always comes back to mutants in some ways with the Simpsons, I think. One theory, however, is that the Simpsons characters are yellow because they don't have livers. Yellow skin is a symptom of liver disease, so I guess that's where they got this one from. One Redditor, Kyle5, wrote that they think everyone in the Simpsons verse gave themselves liver disease by drinking too much Duff beer. They then evolved to not need pesky livers anymore and are somehow surviving and thriving. Honestly, I'm not sure about this one. Coming in at number 9, The Simpsons predicted President Trump. This might be the first prediction theory on this list, but it won't be the last. A lot of people think that the creators of The Simpsons knew about the Trump campaign well before it was announced. Indeed, it is in several episodes that aired long before the 45th Pres of the United States began campaigning. Here's a clip from a 2000 episode of The Simpsons.
you know we've inherited quite a budget crunch from President Trump.
Some also say that this predicts that Hillary will precede Trump as president. Lisa is wearing a pantsuit after all, right? Again, there is an episode in which Homer finds himself in President Trump's hair. In his hair, there are signs for Trump 2012, 2016, 2020, 2024, 2028, etc. While he didn't get nominated as a candidate in 2012, they were only 4 years off their prediction. Homer was then turfed out of his hair and stood behind Trump as he was on the campaign trail. Coming into number 8, The Simpsons creators knew about nuclear spills. There was an episode of The Simpsons in 1990 where Bart is fishing in the Springfield local river, but it seems that the stream was polluted by the nuclear plant that Homer works at. Because of the nuclear waste in the stream, fish had been mutating. Bart pulls out a three-eyed fish from the river. Have a look at this. Weirdly, 21 years later, a three-eyed catfish was pulled from a river in Argentina. Now this was in the Gaunus Canal to be precise. Now it seems that actually this was as a result of a nuclear spill. Did the Simpsons know about various nuclear plants dumping waste into water? Was this a case of the Simpsons predicting the future again? Or is it a coincidence? With the Simpsons, is there such thing as a coincidence? More mutants are coming in at number 7. Marge is a mutant. There is a theory out there going around that Marge is a mutant. A lot of time has been spent speculating on what is going under Marge Simpson's trademark blue hair. How does it stay, well, so up? It seems that there is a strong theory circulating that Marge is actually, a mutant. Being born and raised in Springfield, where we know there's a nuclear power plant, Marge may have been deformed in the womb and was then born with none other than a set of rabbit ears. This provides the structure to her hair. It seems that this theory is confirmed in the Simpsons arcade game when her hair is sucked into a vacuum and we see the ears for ourselves. We also see them in an X-ray of Marge. But weirdly, in a few episodes of The Simpsons, Marge appears with straight hair and the ears are nowhere to be seen. Either she's sprouted them at one point in the narrative, or she's had them removed, or maybe there are many parallel universes in which The Simpsons exist, which would explain a lot of the jumping around timelines and storylines. Coming into number 6, The Simpsons predicted the horse meat scandal. The horse meat scandal erupted in Europe in 2013. In the scandal, undeclared horse meat was slipping into foods. Huge retailer Tesco were outed for having horse meat in their beef burgers, and Taco Bell were found to have horse meat in their tacos. One food brand, Findus, had 99% horse in their beef lasagna. Long before the scandal broke, weirdly, The Simpsons made a reference to it in 1994. It's in an episode where the lunch cook is digging into a barrel of assorted horse parts to dish up to the kids of Springfield Elementary. Was this predicting the future, or did they know a little something that we didn't? Coming into number 5, Marge has no friends, which is really sad. Beyond that though, honestly, it's pretty scary as there's suggestions that Homer likes it that way and uses it to keep her trapped and loyal. BoJack Horseman creator Raphael Bob Waksberg actually began this theory in 2016 when he tweeted, "Does Marge have any friends?" He then wrote a little 15-tweet poem about it. It was very touching. But now, honestly, you think about it, who are Marge's friends? Homer has Lenny and Kirk and Lorne. She never seems to be close to anyone. Perhaps her only friend was Ned Flanders, but she died. Then she has her negative chain-smoking twin sisters, but that seems to be it. Is there anything scarier than loneliness? Like, honestly, I don't think so. One of the saddest and scariest tweets by Raphael was, "Who tells Marge to leave the brute knowing that she won't? You don't have to stay. You deserve so much more. No one. She's alone in this." That makes me sad. Get out, Marge. Get out. Coming in at number 4, The Simpsons is the next Shakespeare. This one's kind of fun, actually. So most of you watching this video will be aware of William Shakespeare. You've probably seen a few Shakespeare plays or even been made to read them at school. For a while now, we have held the works of William Shakespeare in high esteem, but in his lifetime, his work was considered to be kind of lowbrow. There is a theory out there that in 500 years from now, kids will be studying The Simpsons in school. I actually saw a play that worked with this idea. It was called Mr. Burns, and honestly, it was the best play that I've ever seen. The final act is a reenactment of The Simpsons episodes in opera. All the characters are painted gold, honestly I loved it. So why is this scary? Well, a lot of people call The Simpsons trash and like mind rot, and I don't know, maybe they're right, maybe they're not, but perhaps that trash is more accessible and resonant with people than highbrow artistic offerings. In 500 years time, are people still gonna remember The Simpsons? Honestly, I'm really into the thought of a Simpsons opera. Coming into number 3, this show encourages crime. Homer and the gang are known for their many harebrained schemes. They're always getting into mischief and mishaps, but there is a theory that the show actually encourages real-life crime. It seems that a lot of foolhardy criminals have drawn inspiration from The Simpsons. In one Simpsons episode, Lard of the Dance, that aired in 1998, Homer begins a criminal scheme of stealing grease from friars and then reselling it, but then of course they come to blows with the grease mafia. Sure. Anyway, it seems that life began imitating art as several criminals were inspired to try and do exactly the same thing in their own get-rich-quick schemes. 10 years later, the New York Times broke a story about a spike in grease theft from restaurants. How weird. Apparently, yellow grease is a valuable commodity. There was also some speculation that an episode of The Simpsons where Shelbyville kids steal a lemon tree was actually behind a similar crime in Texas in 2013, but I don't know, that might be clutching at straws. Coming into number 2, The Simpsons predicted 9/11 and the higher power theory. When people trawl back through 90s episodes of The Simpsons to see Bart holding up a $9 magazine of New York with the Twin Towers in the background looking very much like an 11, they were actually pretty freaked out. The rest of the predictions can be forgiven, but this was really scary. This one started a wider theory that actually something more untoward was going on, that maybe out there somewhere there was a higher power that was somehow taking influence from the Simpsons episodes and letting it to decide how best to enact their chaos. I don't know about this, but I do think if I was high, I could maybe get into this theory. Like, who's watching? Who? Finally, coming into number 1, Homer has been in a coma the whole time. Nearly. So some of you may have seen the 1993 episode of The Simpsons called So It's Come to This. Homer is crushed by a falling vending machine and goes into a coma. By the end of the episode, Homer wakes up and we have 18 more years of The Simpsons living their lives. Or are they? Redditor Hard to Pick a Name speculates that actually everything that happened after that episode was part of Homer's wild coma dreams. They note a shift in style and tone as the series gets far more wacky. Dream wacky. Further evidence is in an earlier 1993 episode where Homer and God have a talk, and God seems to suggest that he will die in 6 months. Now 6 months is exactly how long it was before the vending machine episode aired. Is he in a coma or is he dead? Is this the afterlife? What does it mean? What does it mean?
Starting off this countdown, we have the wealthy man. Anyone wonder how Homer has so much money? Like, he's got a big home, 2 pets, 3 kids, and can afford tons of food and booze to satisfy his needs. On top of that, we hardly see him working. He definitely does not work every day 9 to 5. And we know that Marge doesn't work. So how is it that he can afford this lifestyle? Well, it's theorized that Homer is still receiving royalties from the B Sharps. For those of you who don't know, back in the day, Homer was in a barbershop quartet called the B Sharps, with Barney, Apu, and Principal Skinner. Clearly, they made a lot of money on their hit album, and to this day, they are still receiving residuals from it. Moving on at number 9, we have Homer the God. All throughout history, gods are often depicted as being magical beings. In Greek mythology, they were often described as being strong, brave, and wise. Other people have depicted them as having white wings and magical powers. Now, what if I told you that Homer himself may be a god? Yep, that's right. That'll teach you not to stereotype gods to look a certain way. So people think that Homer is a god for 2 main reasons. The first one being that Homer is invincible. No matter what happens to him, he will always live on. He can never be killed. In several episodes, Homer has gotten into situations that should have severely harmed him or killed him. But this never happens. He can bleed, his bones can break, but they will always heal. Now, the second piece of evidence is Homer's real age. It seems that he has been around longer than we realize. In multiple episodes, we see a lot of Homer lookalikes from back in the day. Like, we see a Homer lookalike with a beard present for the 10 Commandments. Maybe this is Homer himself and not just a lookalike, meaning he's been around for a very long time. Because he's God. Coming in at number 8, we have the reincarnation. So, like I mentioned before, there seems to be a lot of Homer lookalikes. Whenever there are flashbacks or pictures from the past, we can see people that look just like Homer. Theory goes that every time Homer dies, he is reincarnated into another version of himself, meaning Homer has been alive for a long time. So it seems that Homer is a god similar to the ones in Buddhism, giving him the power of reincarnation. Making our way down the list, number 7, we have the conditions. Ever wondered why the Simpson characters are yellow? Well, get ready because this next theory is pretty wild. So, theory goes that Homer actually suffers from schizophrenia and bipolar disorder. Eventually, he couldn't take it anymore and he tried to end his life. But this was a failed attempt that sadly left him with brain damage. Now he suffers from hallucinations where he imagines that everyone in his town is yellow. On top of that, this is why Homer isn't the brightest. He was actually a pretty clever man, but sadly is no longer due to the brain damage. Moving on to number 6, we have the time traveler. Do not underestimate Homer Simpson. He is way smarter than he appears to be. After I just finished talking that he has brain damage, and it's because he has figured out how to time travel, and he's been doing it for years. This theory can be used to explain why the show has so many inconsistencies. It's because Homer is going back in time and altering the show's history and timeline. That's why some tragic incidents that occur in one episode are completely forgotten and never mentioned again in future episodes. This can also be used to explain why there are Homer lookalikes back in the day. It's because it's actually Homer who has been caught time traveling. Side note, I did a video on top 10 time travelers caught throughout history, so go check that out if you haven't already. But if I do another part to this series, then I should totally add Homer Simpson on the list. We are now at our 5th and halfway mark with Jaundice. Okay, maybe this one is a more realistic reason as to why Homer and the rest of the cast on The Simpsons are yellow. It's simply because they are jaundiced from having liver disease. Yep. That's right. Everyone suffers from liver disease, even newborn babies. Another version to this theory is that they have evolved over time and are no longer born with livers, and that's why they're yellow. Moving on at number 4, we have the immortal life. Ever notice that the residents of Springfield never get older? Seriously, Lisa Simpson has been 8 for like 80 years. Okay, that's an exaggeration, I know. But seriously, they never age. Now, don't be a negative Nelly and comment it's because it's just a TV show, it's a cartoon. Okay, that's no fun. Use your imagination. So, theory goes that the characters on The Simpsons never age, all thanks to Homer Simpson. And no, it's not because he found the fountain of youth. It's quite the opposite reason why. So, theory goes that Homer accidentally released some toxic chemicals at the power plant that, when mixed together, prevents people from aging. So, now they remain the age that they were when they got exposed to those chemicals. Which is why Grandpa Simpson is still alive at his very old age, and why no one seems to age around town. In our 3rd spot, we have the swear words. So, The Simpsons don't really swear in the show. Sure, they allude to swear words, but the characters don't actually curse. Or do they? Well, turns out that the meaning of Homer's dope is worse than we thought. Yes, I have to go like 3 octaves lower just to get that. Theory goes that in the Simpsons dictionary, dough is basically a substitute for the F word. So Homer has quite the potty mouth. This means that he swears around his kids all the time. Poor baby Maggie, I'm surprised that that wasn't her first word. In our 2nd spot, we have the radiation. Homer has screwed up again. So, ever wonder why some Simpsons characters have actual hair like Homer, Apu, Moe, and Barney, but then other people have super weird hair, like Bart and Lisa? Well, you can blame Homer for that. While working at the power plant, he caused an explosion that mutated a bunch of people, like Bart, Lisa, and Maggie. The radiation caused their heads to become deformed and all pointy looking. So, in reality, their heads used to be normal with normal hair, but thanks to their father, they now have to suffer with weirdly shaped pointy heads. And in our number 1 spot, we have the Simpsons World. Okay, this honestly has to be my favorite theory out there. But basically, it's said that Homer Simpson and his family are all part of a television show. Okay, yes, clearly they are. But this television show is one inside of the show Futurama. So basically, the characters of Futurama created the world of this show. It's a show inside a show. Okay, so let's look at the evidence. In season 1 of Futurama, tons of Simpsons merchandise can be seen in the background of the show, such as Bart Simpson dolls and other Simpsons toys. And in one episode, there was even footage from an old Simpsons episode playing on a screen. Not only that, but Matt Groening makes an appearance in Futurama as a jarred head at Comic-Con. So it could be that The Simpsons was a show created by Matt Groening, who is a cartoonist in Futurama. Amazing. Starting off the countdown, we have the death of the president's wife. Okay, this one is quite eerie. In season 14, episode 21 of The Simpsons, titled Bart of War, an interesting headline can be seen across the newspaper in one of the scenes. The newspaper headline reads, "A president shoots his wife." Could it be that The Simpsons predicted that Trump or another president will kill their wife? Let's hope not. Now, up to this point, no president has shot their wife. In fact, this episode came out in 2003, and the president at the time was George W. Bush. Now, his wife Laura Bush is still alive, so this headline has not come true, meaning maybe it won't happen. Or maybe this means it wasn't Bush they were worried about, but a different president. In our 9th spot, we have the outbreak. Of course, you have probably heard that The Simpsons predicted our current situation. In the 1993 episode titled Marge in Chains, a mysterious virus from Asia plagues the town of Springfield. In the episode, a sick factory worker coughs into a bunch of boxes that were then shipped to Springfield. As a result, tons of Springfield residents get sick with this flu. The flu spreads quickly throughout the town, and soon numerous residents become sick. On top of that, the doctor says that the best way to combat the flu is to stay at home. Okay, that's pretty creepy. Seems an awful lot like what's currently going on. So, in 1993, The Simpsons predicted this current outbreak. Coming in at number 8, we have Tom Hanks. Fans are adamant that The Simpsons predicted that Tom Hanks would catch the virus and would have to self-isolate. So let's look at the facts. In 2007, in the Simpsons movie, Tom Hanks makes a guest star appearance. So in this movie, Springfield gets trapped inside of a dome. People think that this eerily resembles all of the countries that have gone into lockdown. But not only that, in the movie we see Hanks advertising the new Grand Canyon. He finishes the ad by saying, and I quote, "This is Tom Hanks saying, if you see me in person, please leave me be." Fans think that this highlights how Hanks got sick and needed to isolate, aka he shouldn't be interacting with anyone until he is 100% healthy again. In our 7th spot, we have Hologram Mail. The Simpsons episode titled Bart to the Future was the episode that predicted Trump's presidency. Not only that, but it may have predicted hologram mail. In the episode, Bart receives a hologram message in the mail, much like the ones that we see in Star Wars and other movies. I mean, it's pretty cool. And guess what? It's currently in the works. Products like the Real Fiction HD3 is using hologram-like technology. On top of that, KT, Korea Telecom, is currently working on a 360-degree live VR FaceTime. Basically, you wear a headset and you'll be able to see the person that you're FaceTiming with right there in your living room with you. Kinda creepy, but kinda cool. Making our way down the list, at number 6, we have the surgery robots. In the episode Holidays of Future Past, which is the 9th episode of season 23, we see that the youngest Simpson, Maggie, is pregnant and is being treated by a robot. The robot is giving her advice and is performing an ultrasound. Well, surgery and medical robots are currently being created. One doctor in Japan is creating a robot to conduct ultrasounds just like we saw in the episode. On top of that, surgery robots are under works, but I don't know how much I would trust them. Like, all we need is them to malfunction during a heart or brain surgery. No thank you, that's terrifying. We're now at our 5th and halfway mark with the space expedition. The Simpsons believe that shortly we will be able to travel to and live on Mars. In season 27, episode 16, titled Margian Chronicles, Lisa signs up to be part of a mission to colonize Mars. As a result, she ends up on Mars with Marge. So people think that 2020 will be the year that great space advancements will be made. Particularly, they believe that Elon Musk will start sending people to Mars. Well, according to Musk, for 2020 he has plans to send cargo to Mars. Then in 2024 he will send more cargo and then some crew members. Then by 2050 he wants to send 1 million people to Mars. I mean, hey, at least he's got goals. Now, this seems unlikely, but who knows? Maybe it will be added to the list of Simpsons predictions that have come true. In our fourth spot, we have the robot takeover. With robots now replacing a lot of workers, I feel like it's only time before they start to take over the world. And according to The Simpsons, this may be in our near future. There are numerous episodes of The Simpsons where we see robots taking over. One of them being the episode titled Itchy and Scratchy Land, which was episode 4 in season 6. In this episode, large animatronic robots go haywire and cause mass destruction. They basically turn into killing machines, threatening The Simpsons' lives. Then there's the episode titled Them Robots, which is the 17th episode of season 23. In this episode, Mr. Burns replaces all of the power plant workers with robots. But this goes terribly wrong and the robots start to turn on the community. So The Simpsons not only predicted that robots will take all of our jobs, but also that they will turn against us and try to wipe out the entire human race. In our third spot, we have World War III. Earlier this year, we were threatened with the possibility of World War III. Thankfully, it hasn't happened yet. Could 2020 be the year that World War III happens? Well, let's ask The Simpsons, because they predicted that it will happen. In the 1995 episode titled Lisa's Wedding, we dive 15 years into the future. Now, in this episode, we see Homer and Lisa's fiance, Hugh, drinking at Moe's bar. In the scene, Moe realizes that Hugh is from England and mocks him by saying, "We saved you in World War II." Now, it's Hugh's response that has sparked a lot of interest. He replies saying, "Yeah, well, we saved you in World War III. Oh, great. So it may just be that another war is going to begin. What's scary is how this particular episode was filled with other predictions that have come true, like virtual reality games, FaceTime, and Apple Watches. So let's hope that this particular one doesn't come true. In our second spot, we have the disastrous asteroid. What else can we add to the list of 2020 tragedies? How about an asteroid that might crash down on Earth and completely destroy us all? In the 14th episode of season 6 titled Bart's Comet, Bart discovers a comet that is headed straight towards Earth. They believe that the comet is going to destroy life as they know it. Well, NASA is currently tracking a giant asteroid traveling at around 28,000 miles per hour that's headed towards Earth's orbit. Great! This asteroid is around 1,500 feet wide. Its impact could be very disastrous and could wipe us out. Now, the Simpsons episode ends with the comet being burnt up into little pieces, causing no harm to Earth. Amen! And NASA reports that the asteroid currently poses no threats, so maybe we're safe for now. And in our number 1 spot, we have the murder hornets. Just when we thought 2020 couldn't get any worse, there are now murder hornets that are infesting certain areas of the world. Like, come on, give us a break here. And you guessed it, The Simpsons predicted this once again. What's freaky is how The Simpsons predicted that we would be invaded by murder hornets at the same time as the virus outbreak. So in the 1993 episode titled Marge in Chains, the town gets sick from the flu sent from Japan. In the same episode, people are rioting and then they knock over a truck which breaks open a crate labeled Danger, Killer Bees. I don't know how they do it, but they do it. Now, these murder hornets have arrived in North America. They get its name because they rip off the heads of bees who are their main food source. Now, it's said that they don't really pose that much of a threat to humans. Their stings are very, very painful, but they are only deadly to some people. So yeah, they are killers and they were predicted by The Simpsons.